We are really having a lighting issue today. Let me see if I can fix this. There's a light back here. One sec. Well, that looks less creepy. So I just wanted to do a short video because I had another breakthrough in therapy, and I just wanted to talk about computers. And I'm just curious how many of you out there also grew up with a computer in the house. I was really surprised to find that there's people in my age group that didn't get into computers until they were like practically in college. My husband told me he didn't really grow up with a computer. He got a computer in his 20s, shortly before finding me. So I was really surprised by that because when I was growing up, we always had, from the time I was 4 onward, we always had a computer in the house. My first computer ever was an old DOS that was a store model, a store floor model, and it ran on GeoWorks. And if you don't know what GeoWorks is, YouTube has a couple of cool videos on it, and I think there's a website that has some great screenshots of it. The Wayback Machine has it, and then there's one website that has like a virtual box where you can play in it. I don't remember the name of it, but it's one word, GeoWorks. You want to Google that. It's an interesting sort of relic of the early 1990s, late 80s, early 90s. But I loved it. It was limited, but I loved this computer. And we had this one computer from the time I was 4 until my dad broke it purposefully when I was 16 because he felt bored. And this would be a recurring problem with him. As I was growing up, we had lots of computers. Some of them he obtained through pirate means. We're going to run with that word because I don't know how some of you feel about kleptomania. That would be the correct word. Some of them were cobbled together via eBay when that was brand new back in '96 through various means, and he would cobble together parts of computers that don't belong together, and he would just Frankenstein them. And part of today's therapy was about how from the time I was 6 onward, I was Little Miss Fix-It in the house. I'm sure you got the Wreck-It Ralph joke. From the time I was 6 onward, I had my own screwdriver set, and I had duct tape on me at all times because I constantly had to fix something he broke, and usually it was a computer. And back in 2007, before I moved away, we had a horrible, horrible fight, and this has been the subject of 2 therapy sessions because I didn't realize how much trauma that actually caused me because I was just so focused on the anger part that I didn't think, hey, this might actually damage you for life. But I brought this up to my therapist because I'm not proud of this, but I want to come clean. When I have to fix computers now, sometimes I can have a bad attitude. It's not cool. It's not something I condone. It's not something I want anybody to emulate. It's not okay. It's not excusable. But I have a bad attitude when it comes to fixing certain computers. Even for loved ones, you know, they'll say, hey, can you help me out with this? And as soon as they go like, you know, oh, hey, let me take the mouse and let me try something, I'm like, oh, and I turn full Yosemite Sam. I'm like, give me that mouse. And then I end up doing it for them. I end up fixing everything for them. And like I said, that's a bad attitude. So I wanted to fix that. So I told my therapist about it because I want to fix that. But I know it comes from dealing with my dad. Back in 2007, we had a horrible fight because I was just about to start a brand new job. I used to work at a school supply company. 0 stars, don't recommend, they're out of business now. I was supposed to start work at a school supply company, and my mom's friend had gifted me a gateway computer. His job was transitioning from old computers to new, and they were throwing away computers instead of recycling them. I hate when people don't recycle, by the way. That bothers me. I'm not Codename Sailor Earth for nothing. But instead of recycling the computers, they were chucking them in the bin, and my mom's friend saved a lot of them. And he had taken some home for himself, and he had given a few away to friends, and he knew that I was getting a job, so he gave me this computer as a gift. And I was like, wow, what a thoughtful gift, thank you. And he was like, yeah, it's essentially a new computer, so I don't know why they threw it away, but it doesn't have an OS system. And for those who don't know, an OS system or an operating system, that would be either Windows or Mac or Linux. Basically, just some really expensive piece of software that makes the computer work. It makes you able to use the internet, play games, whatever it is you want to do. At the time, I was thrilled because my local Target that I could walk to had just picked up Windows 7, in case I've dated this enough. And I'm in love with Windows 7. I still love Windows 7. And I was thrilled. I was like, oh, I'm so excited. I'll start this new job. I'm going to save up some money from a couple paychecks. And about 2-3 paychecks, I can go get a copy of Windows 7. I'll put it on this computer, and it's going to be a brand new computer. And I'm just like tickled pink about it. So I was still living with my dad when this happened. 0 stars. And he demanded that all computers in the house be in the living room. I didn't know at the time that this was part of narcissistic control, or that my dad is actually on the spectrum and didn't get diagnosed until recently. But he had to have things in a certain area of the house. All of the family computers needed to be in one room. All of the consoles had to be in this room. The TV had to be with the consoles, of course, or otherwise there's no point to it. And, like, things had to be in certain areas. So, you know, because this had been indoctrinated into the family, nobody thought about it. And at the time, I was getting new furniture built. My mom and I were building furniture in my room, so I didn't yet have the computer desk. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to leave it in the living room, and we're not going to do anything with it, because I need to build the desk. And then once the desk is built, it's going to go in there, and then I can save up for the OS system. And I was just like, in my own head, computer jargon, all the tech geeky stuff I was going to put on this thing. The next day, my mom and my brother and I went to a Ring of Honor pay-per-view taping and had a fantastic time. And there was an after party where you could have pizza with the wrestlers, and we had an even more fantastic time. And we took pictures, and it was just the best day ever. And then we didn't get home until like 4 o'clock the next morning because traffic was god-awful because it's Chicago on a Saturday. Of course it's awful. But we got home at like 4 in the morning, and I zonked. I passed out in my bed, and I was just filled with pizza and wrestling and computers and just happiness. And I was looking forward to a brand new day of setting out my work clothes, because the day after that day, I would have started my first job. So I was tickled. The next morning, my brother is shaking me awake. He's screaming. He's like, Corey, we've been robbed. Corey, we've been robbed. I spring out of bed. My first thing is, Orion, are you okay? Were you hurt? Did anybody touch you? And he's like, no, I don't know who did this. We've been robbed. I can't find Mom. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm looking around. My mom left a note for me saying she'd already gone grocery shopping. So I'm thinking, I look outside, the car's gone. So I'm thinking, if she's already gone grocery shopping, then this must have happened after she went away. So my brother is in full panic. We've been robbed. So I'm like, okay, well, you're not hurt. All right. So I go to the living room. All the video game consoles are there. The TV is there. I check through the house. I'm like, the valuables are here. The family photos are here. Anything that would have been of value that didn't come out of the Goodwill is here. It's all accounted for. Nobody's touched it. Dust and the fingerprints, nothing new. What happened? What got stolen? And he's like hyperventilating. He goes, your computer. And at that point, I told him, okay, take a deep breath, sit down, it's going to be okay. And he's like, no, somebody stole your computer. And he's like, no, it's going to be okay because I know who did it. And I know where he's at. You're okay. You sit down, you watch TV, it's going to be okay. I run downstairs because I know my dad has taken the computer, and he has. The only thing that's left are cords. The monitor's gone, the PC's gone, and there's just cords everywhere. And I'm like, that tells me right here what a kind of a moron he is, because why would you take the computer and not the cords? You need the cords to plug it into the wall. That's how computers work. So I ran downstairs, and I was like, okay, what did you do to my... And I looked down, and my computer is in pieces all over the dirty carpet that he didn't vacuum. And there's computer pieces mixed in with these pieces, and they are all meshed together like a grid on the carpet. If you've ever seen Gridman or Superhero Samurai Cyber Squad, same show, just imagine that world, but now it's on carpet. That's what it looked like. There's wires and chips everywhere. And by the way, carpet is like the worst thing to put with computer parts because it will destroy data. Guess how I learned that? This moment. So I am now tiptoeing through a landmine maze of computer parts to find my dad in his man cave basement apartment that he built, which tells you where my parents were on the road to divorce. And I was like, why did you take my computer? Why did you break my computer? This is not your computer. You have 5 computers of your own. Why did you take my only computer? Why is it in pieces? Why did you do this? And his response was, I never should have had you. And I was like, well, you were the one that didn't want to wear protection, so here I am. I'm your responsibility now, and now you are responsible for this mess. Why did you break the computer? We had a 3.5-hour fight. And every time I kept asking, what does this have to do with the computer, he would just go on this tangent. He screamed at me for something that happened at his job with people I've never met before. And I'm like, I am third planet, not part of this story. What does this have to do with the computer? He screamed at me about what went wrong with his childhood, how his parents were gleeful about neglecting him. And I'm like, maybe you should go to therapy about this. What does this have to do with my computer? I wasn't even alive back in the 60s. Then he somehow circled this around to being ableist about my little brother. And I'm like, we're going to throw hands in 5 seconds. You don't ever say shit about my little brother. I'm going to go to prison for what I'm about to do to you if you don't stop talking about my brother right now. And then he went on about how he was glad my dead little sister never was born. And I'm like, I'm going to prison. And I grabbed one of his Masonic Lodge awards off of the wall. And I was like, you have wasted so much money on the Masonic Lodge, an eye for an eye. You've destroyed my computer. I'm destroying this. And I chucked it at him, and he moved, and it bounced, and boing, fell on the carpet perfectly fine, not even a scratch. And I was like, this is a piece of wood. Why did it bounce? And he was like, oh, all my rewards are rubber and plastic. And I was like, you spent my college tuition on rubber and plastic. That's really interesting to know. By the way, can we circle back to you breaking the computer and how you didn't want me or my sister or my brother? Because I'm like this close to going to jail right now. I could have killed you with this. So we just kept arguing. He never told me why he broke the computer. And I was like, okay, I'm going to change the question because it's 3.5 hours now. I can see by the clock. I'm going to change the question. Why do you destroy computers? Why do you destroy our things? Why do you steal stuff from my mom? Why do you keep doing this? And the only answer I could get out of 3.5 hours of this temper tantrum, out of this late stage boomer Gen Joneser, which is why I have so much anger towards that generation, he said he did it for his entertainment. He gets bored and he wants attention. So rather than just be a good dad, he breaks stuff knowing it'll piss us off so he can have arguments, and arguments are how he gets entertainment. And I'm like, you need a hobby. You know, guys your age usually build ships and models. You have computers. I can show you a ton of games you can download for legally free for your computer. Don't have to spend any money. And you can just free to play. You can download games and play games. There's video games. I know you used to be a gamer, because you and Mom fought about that too, because you broke her Atari. There's video games you could play. You could go outside. You like gardening. Grow some flowers or shit. Don't break my computer. You know, it's like listing off different things that are fun and entertaining and don't involve pissing me off. And he wasn't interested in that. He liked pissing me off too much. So I was exhausted after this point. My blood pressure was through the roof. I came upstairs, and by this point, my mom came in with the groceries, and she was like, "What'd I miss?" So I tagged her in, and after I put away the groceries, my brother came out with a notebook and a pencil, and we wrote a 95 thesis on why our parents needed a divorce. And then my brother went into his room, and he came out with like jars of chore money and stuff, change he found in the couch and change he found on the street, and he was like, "Here you go, down payment on a divorce." So we just started like, we actually purchased our parents' divorce. We started saving up money just so our parents could divorce, because my mom does not need the stress. So I didn't really think about that too often until recently. One of my computers is currently broken. I know how to fix it. I just don't have the parts right now because I also really like eating. It's an older computer, so the parts I need are a little more on the pricey side. And I don't feel like ponying up that money right now because I like paying bills and eating food, like usagi. So I know how to fix this and I know what it needs. I just haven't done it. But the sight of it not working stressed me out really bad. It's one of my favorite computers that I've ever had. It's a Windows 7. We circled back to that somehow. It's just a gorgeous computer and I want it to work again. I just don't have what I need at the moment. But I was getting like irrationally upset about that. And we were watching a comedy movie, just family day. We had all the family over. We were watching a comedy movie, and one of the jokes in the movie surrounds a busted computer that it just continues to get worse and worse. And it's a funny joke. I don't remember the movie now, but it was a funny joke. Just the sight of the computer being destroyed triggered me. So I decided, I should totally call my therapist about this. So we had 2 sessions, and today I figured out why it was stressing me out. It wasn't just because of this one isolated fight with my dad, or all the other computers he broke, which were like 12 of them that I had to fix, and 2 I could not salvage beyond repair. Oh, by the way, the computer he broke in 2007 died the worst death I have ever seen a computer die in my life. We did get it operational, but then the hard drive was cracked, so every day it was just like a narwhal, like a dying narwhal. It was just like... I know that feeling, stress. Oh, Clarissa, I'm so sorry to hear that. My condolences, just from one friend to another. But like, I've heard this thing die a slow narwhal death, just click, 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 click. So that was like painful to watch. I had the blue screen of death pop up more than I want to remember. So went through this with my therapist this morning, and I discovered the reason why broken computers stress me out more than they should. It wasn't just that I love computers. It wasn't just that I love learning about computers. It wasn't even just, all the fights I had with my dad. It was that as I was growing up, he would purposefully destroy computers knowing I viewed a computer as my window out. When I was a kid, he moved us around a lot. We were isolated. We would move to places where I had no friends, I had no family, I didn't know anybody. I was permanently an outsider. I couldn't put down roots. And anytime we would start to wiggle free a little bit, make a friend, start to get used to the environment, pack it up, we gotta move. And when I had a usable computer, which ironically, he was the parent that got me into computers, because I was the one who taught my mom how to use a computer. He got me into computers, but he wanted me to get into computers only so I would be a miniature him. He wanted me to collect the same Barbies as him. He's a Barbie collector too. We don't have the same Barbies. He's into Bob Mackie. I was into career Barbies. And now I'm into really pink Barbies, and he hates pink. So we argued about that. He wanted me to go to his Masonic websites, because there is for daughters of Freemasons, a place you can go called Daughters of the Eastern Star. Imagine Girl Scouts, except you do less and it's boring and it's less fun, and that's kind of the thing. Oh, and there's lots of needlepoint. That didn't really interest me. And also, most of the Daughters of the Eastern Star that he wanted me to hook up to were like older than my grandparents. Like, they called my grandparents kids, so I'm not in the same generation. I'm all into like Pokemon, okay? You are into Pokemon. Okay, we're not the same. So, he wanted to get into that. He wanted me to get into his adoration for Civil War reenactments, because one of his big brothers is into Civil War reenactments for the Confederacy, which is weird because our ancestors were Union. I don't know what that's about, but they both have like this weird love of Confederacy, and I'm like, my ancestors on mom's side were slaves, so don't with me. Just don't. I'm not here for that. There's a big reason why Addie is my favorite American girl, and not Felicity. And then, like, he also wanted me to be into all of his hobbies. He also loved studying World War II, and he has a pink copy of Kampf. Why do you have that book? Because my grandmother still has flashbacks from escaping the Nazis on my mom's side. And B, why is it pink? Why is there a Barbie edition of this? Oh my god, Barbie should be as far away from this as possible. It's got glitter. I don't know if he put the glitter there or not, but I'm not putting any links up. You can just Google that, okay? It's just would visit. That is so mean. But he wanted me into this stuff, and the mixed race person here is not interested in that. You know, I was more interested in like Power Rangers and shit. So, when he saw not only that I couldn't enjoy what he wanted to look up on the computer the way he did, but also that I was using the computer to excel in school and to excel in other areas of my life, he went from, look at my genius kid on the computer, to, hey genius, you better fix the computer I just broke, I got a work email. The tone changed lickety-split and never changed back. And as I was approaching the end of my time with him, I used the computer more and more to find jobs, find side gigs, get work that paid me. I used it to make friends. I used it to find John, my husband, and eventually with him, which is why he's my husband. And the more I used computers to find my gateway out, the more destructive he was. And I realized that in therapy now, that for me, a computer isn't just something fun to play with or a really useful tool. It was my window. It was my gateway out. I couldn't control where we lived. I couldn't control where my bed was at night, but I could absolutely use the computer as my escape. I could hit that proverbial escape button. I could go into cyber worlds and find all the wonderful things we take for granted in adulthood, like, again, work, friendship, and romance. And I use the computer for all of this. I also use the computer to find my websites, obviously with a computer. I started tooling about with YouTube back in 2008. This is not my first channel. And, you know, I started using the computer to make videos, to create content, just to entertain people, really, just to, you know, share myself, but also share a laugh once in a while. A lot of people don't know this, but Moon Sisters existed as a way for me to just share Sailor Moon jokes. Initially, it was just my brand of humor, and also my adoration for Kousagi and Chibiusa, and later on, Chibi Chibi. Just because I like those characters. You know, I didn't think it was going to be popular. I just wanted to connect with people and just make them laugh. And I used a computer for all of that. And the better I was at fixing computers and the better I was at using them in a positive way, the more destructive he got with them. I don't think he has one at the moment. If he does, I know it probably doesn't work because he doesn't know how to fix a computer. He would always lie to us and say he could fix a computer, and then I would have to fix the computer. Wolfwood 827, I am speechless. I'm so sorry your dad did that. He was a real piece of work. Yeah. I know where he lives. and I always go past it when I have to take the train to Chicago. I don't make any effort to stop that train because it's for my health and his. Um, when I moved in with my husband, he stopped talking to me. He also doesn't realize that John is a real person. He thought I made him up. John rides the train with me. It's going to be really funny the day those paths cross. Especially because John is like twice as tall as him and an ex-pro wrestler and full of tattoos. That's going to be hilarious. Because my dad is now a little shorter than me, so that's really funny. But yeah, like, I guess I always wished I had a dad that wanted to be a dad, as opposed to my enemy. There's a word for that. I'm sure we'll run with it. But in therapy, I found that I loved computers because it gave me that window that has led to my adult life, that led to all the positive things I have. My husband, our son, our friends, my website, my followers, all of you. And that's precious. And when you have something precious, you want to protect it. So I guess my anger and my sorrow wasn't just that he destroyed one of my computers again, but it was also that this was now something precious. A gateway to all of you is precious to me. So to have that destroyed made me hurt and angry. So now I understand why I get defensive with computers. I get immature about computers. So now I can work on my behavior more so I can be less immature when I have to fix something, and I don't have to like over control the situation. I don't have to snatch a mouse and be rude about it. Now I can work on those manners and be the person that I preach about, you know? But aside from that, I also remembered other things that I loved about computers. I loved how they sound, how different generations of computers sound. I remembered through therapy some of the tricks that I used to play. Like, whenever I would get pissed off, before I was homeschooled, whenever I would get pissed off at school, like the teacher was being really racist with me and I caught her like putting down my mom or something. To get back at her when she wasn't looking, I would go to the school computer and I would put all the computers on military time. Because I knew how to do that at 5 and 6 years old. And I'll be like, that teaches you. I'll put everything on military time. So she's like, why is it saying it's 13 o'clock? There's only supposed to be 1 through 12. And I would just snicker and go, all the way back to my desk, because she would never figure it out because she was an idiot. But I used to do that. I remembered we had 2 different copies of Capture the Flag. Like at school, Capture the Flag on the computer was just red flags and blue flags. And I always picked Team Blue. At home, we had a different version that was the U.S. Army versus the Confederate Army. And it would have you play through Civil War, no matter which game won, you know, whether it was you or a buddy that won, no matter what side, the game would always stop, and then it would run an animation where it would teach you, like, how the Civil War actually ended. At school, again, if the teacher pissed me off, I would go into the coding for the game, and I would change the coding to flip it back from red and blue flags to U.S. versus Confederacy, and I would always be on Team America, and I would always beat the Confederacy because I know how to play the game. So that was another way I used to piss off the teachers. You know, I'd just be on Team America, you know, that'll teach you. I went to school for a year in Virginia, so that meant something. I would also, like, I would download all kinds of games and clean up spyware and viruses and such, even as a little kid. But just in going through the therapy, I remembered like all the fun stuff, not just the work stuff, and the personal stuff, but like the games I would play, my CD-ROMs, my floppy disks, AOL shareware. I spent far too much time on AOL shareware. We had like bootlegs of a lot of arcade games through AOL shareware. So when I got my Pandora console, and it had like Mario Brothers on there, not Super Mario Brothers, just regular Mario Brothers, I already knew how to play the game, and I just had like a ridiculous amount of fun. But I remembered like all the fun stuff, and I remembered that's something else that's worth protecting. All those games, all the silly stuff we do with computers, the art projects I would print up for my mom, because I'd figured out how to do, I forget what we called it, but we used to do this thing where we would like make pictures out of text, and it's just like a ream of text, but if you print the whole thing out, it makes a teddy bear or Chibiusa. I learned how to make Chibiusa in her princess outfit out of just typing text until I would just type and use spaces on Notepad and just do that over and over until it made a face. And then I would just like keep doing that until I made like the Princess Serenity gown and her hair clips. I had way too much time on my hands. Probably should have gotten a hobby at some point. Maybe go outside. I don't know. I wasn't good at hula hoop. I'm still learning. But I just remembered all the fun that comes with a computer. And those are things to protect too. You know, your happiness, your joy, the things that bring you pleasure that aren't illegal. You should totally protect that. So, yeah, I just kind of learned a lot about my love of computers through therapy today, and I just wanted to make this video to see if anybody else had the same love of computers, if you grew up with a computer in the house, if you remembered like flash games or whatever, and definitely to see if anybody else had to deal with the amount of stress that I did. After that fight, I went full Home Alone in my house. I did something unhealthy. I went to the craft store. I'd rather have my happiness than take it all away. Studio Productions 6642, I'm with you on that. Especially in a post-COVID world. Wow, did COVID teach me a lot about happiness. But after that big fight I had with my dad, I went to the craft store and I spent $100 on craft supplies. I bought yarn, ribbon, and jingle bells. The manager thought I was crazy because I was obsessively taking out-of-season jingle bells, because this was like almost summer. I was taking out-of-season jingle bells and shaking them to my ear and hearing different sounds. And the reason why I did that was because when I got home with the yarn, the twine, the ribbon, and the jingle bells, was I booby-trapped my house. I would tie secret bells to everything in the house, and each bell had a different ring. So depending on what sound I heard, I always knew where my dad was, what he was touching, what was being broken, and how much time it would take me to get from my room to wherever he was in the house. It was horrible. Don't recommend that style of living, but I booby-trapped everything. I tied bells to everything. I even went into my mom and my brother's stuff, and I started tying bells to their most precious things. And I was like, okay, when the divorce is done and we move away, you can cut the bells off. Do whatever you want with the bells, but for right now, you're keeping them on. And I would always tie them in a secret area where it wouldn't be a hazard or trap an air vent, and where he couldn't see it. So he would, when he tried to tug on the computer again, I heard a clang, 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 and I knew to go over there. I hear him touch the video game consoles, and I hear ding-a-ling-a-ling, I'd go over here. And I would just go to different points in the house, depending on the jingle bell. I also had unhealthy sleeping habits. He would go to bed at 2:30 in the morning, but wake up at 4. And like a toddler, he would bang and crash through the pots and pans in our house. Why was he doing this? To make a cup of coffee. We had a Mr. Coffee machine. It was on the counter. You just put water into it, your coffee grounds, and it goes, and it makes coffee. And the coffee cups were next to the coffee machine. Why do you need pots and pans for coffee? We're in the new millennium now. We don't have a percolator or nothing. You don't have to boil the coffee on the stove. You know, he would do stupid stuff like this. And he would get up at 4:30. He wouldn't leave the house until after 8. So I would just stay up that whole time. And one of the things that John told me about when I moved in with him was that he wanted my sleep cycle to change, because never sleeping, only getting like a power nap here and there, was not healthy. So I didn't actually see sleep until I got with my husband. And now I don't sleep now because we have a toddler. That's fun. But at least it's a fun reason. I get to play and watch Thomas the Tank Engine now. I've memorized all the songs. We're not doing the CGI one or the cartoon one, though. That I have a limit. We're just doing the classics shit from the 80s and 90s. But, yeah, I developed habits just to protect what was precious to us. And that wasn't healthy. It was mental, and it was bad for my health. It was bad for my sleep. But I started developing that savior complex. I started wanting to be Sailor Moon, to just protect what we had. It wasn't my job, just like her. It's not her job. And it's not healthy. It's really not healthy fighting monsters. But I developed that anyway, just to make sure that my mom and brother at least had a little peace. So that's what I learned in therapy. And you know, one of the things that I ended up learning, because I did actually like cry a little bit. And I didn't expect to, because for me this is like a memory. But I did cry a little bit, because I was like, I didn't realize how precious computers were to me until I did this therapy. But, you know, just like in Sailor Moon, one of the things we learned from her is it's okay to cry. I mean, she cries over ice cream, so I can cry over a computer. So, you know, there you go on that one. But yeah, that was a little story I wanted to share, and I want to know if you grew up with a computer, though. I want to hear about your computers, because as I am trying to budget fixing my computer, it would make me happy to hear happy computer stories from some of you. I'll be shutting this video off in a little bit because I got to go get lunch ready, but if anybody's watching this video after it's live, I would love to hear, like, what sort of computers you grew up with. Did you have a GeoWorks? I only have one friend that knows about GeoWorks outside of my little brother, so I would love to hear GeoWorks. If you had Flash games, like I went to a site recently that preserved some of the old Barbie Flash games. I'd like to hear about that too. You know, if you had like Doom. I had a copy of Doom. I had a bootleg copy of Doom, and then I got it on SNES with a far superior soundtrack. You know, did you play Doom? Did you do any of that? I'd love to hear those stories. And then, before I turn the video off, I want to give a shout out. He doesn't know me, but I'm a big fan of this series called Lazy Game Reviewer, or LJR, on YouTube. Check him out on YouTube, LGR, Lazy Game Reviewer, because, like, he's got a lot of videos of where I'd like to be. I grew up with two computers. My family used to have a Windows 95 and a Windows XP PC until 2013. XP I liked. Windows 95 I'm not a fan of. Windows 98, I will share in another video a story about Windows 98. That'll be for another time. We're not friends, Windows 98 and I. But XP is fine. That's a good usable OS system. All the jobs I had XP. Even my most recent one still had XP, which I find interesting because I have a Windows 11 laptop. But yeah, Lazy Game Reviewer I like because he's at a point of comfort with computers I'm working towards. He had a video before the hurricane destroyed a lot of his computers. He had a video about fixing an old Barbie computer, and he was stressed about it, but it wasn't like end of the world stress. It was more like, what an inconvenience. Oh no, I need a different fan for this. Oh, the wire doesn't work right. But it was like a calm sort of stress, and he, spoiler alert, did end up fixing the computer better than it was new. And I want to have his comfort. I want to look at computers not with, oh no, it's broken, what'll I do? But I want to look at computers with, okay, this is inconvenient, but here's the part I'm going to buy on eBay. I want that feeling. I want to feel happy and just neutral when I go to fix a computer next time. So I'm using his channel as like my goal for the type of person I want to become with computers. So I highly recommend his YouTube channel. But anywho, I'm going to jump off of here. It is lunchtime. Please keep sharing your computer stories. That's going to bring me a lot of joy. And thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you folks soon.